cross-cutting function that we have to respond. Secondly, I have heard enough in the terms of vocabularies on technology facilitation by way of technology transfer. These concepts today have to be refreshed in a more pragmatic way. First, we feel that South Asia is pitching for modernization of its own infrastructure. It is pitching for investing in the human capital, which is in large number, and we have to look at skills which give them jobs or which make them self-employed. The third submission of South Asia would be an economic performance and ability to earn money, be it for livelihood or otherwise. Now, I have realized out of my experience that technology facilitation from advanced countries makes less meaning to most of us in South Asia. In the sense, we worked with Europe on wastewater treatment. We found that the wastewater treatment technologies that Europe could offer to us were centralized and not decentralized solution. Secondly, the cost of operation and maintenance of those technologies required highly skilled, trained people. And those could not stand the rural or the dusty environments that our rural settings offer. Our rural landscape, where majority people live, could not make use of those technologies. So the point I want to submit as number one is technology facilitation from advanced countries does not make much headway. We grope for quite some time and realize the cost exorbitant, highly centralized, operation maintenance difficult. We don't have high-end skilled people to maintain those systems. So let us first demystify that point. Secondly, when I look at energy solutions, the energy solutions, again, we have a mission innovation energy where more than 25 countries have set itself on smart grids, off-grids, biofuel, what have we. Now, countries like ours need decentralized, hybrid solutions where the conventional electricity or the solar electricity could be blended for our immediate needs. The new vocabulary which the advanced countries have given, which is worth emulating by us, is becoming a prosumer. Means I produce renewable energy and I consume both kinds of energies. All of us have got rooftops in our dwellings. How do we use solar electricity to be integrated with our immediate requirements? That's the second kind of a technology action that we all need in South Asia. The third is the agro-food domain, where I have realized that today the artificial intelligence and the satellite imageries are able to help the crop damage and crop insurance to be better delivered to our farmers. Now we must adopt some emerging technologies to help our farming community whose crops get damaged by floods or any natural disasters. How do we help amongst ourselves? We all have got some wherewithal for space and satellite image collecting systems. Now it can precisely help farmer stake his claim to get insurance if there is a crop damage. The other element which I see as an immediate requirement is the natural disaster resilience. We were talking about vulnerabilities in the morning, but the point is, be it urban or rural citizens, everybody can be caught unaware by natural disasters. How do we handle this requirement amongst ourselves? My submission on technology facilitation is, let us cash on crowdsourcing. People who matter can come together with their capital, money, experience, and get going. The other point is the open source innovations will be very helpful, which are not proprietary. We have seen that the Android-based platform of smartphones is allowing many people to convert idea to products, and those applications can be handy. So let us look at co-investing our own money. I don't wish to mark ODAs or advanced countries giving us money. We have money, but prioritization is vital. And the human capital that we are talking of must be prepared for future jobs. Our people are not getting the right education, so the power of ideas with youngsters must be capitalized, and mentors from anywhere in the world can be added to them. But let us convert idea to products. And in this sense, let us watch where is the space for South Asia in global programs, be it Mission Innovation Energy, be it Global Alliance for Chronic Diseases, be it a coalition for epidemic and pandemic innovations, be it for International Solar Alliance. Let us see our niche, but our money has to be better prioritized, and let us collectively co-invest our resources and use crowdsourcing effectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aurelia. Now, the next speaker, do we have Mrs. Kiran Gupta? Well, okay. So, my long-standing friend Nazir Kabiri, Senior Advisor to the Finance Minister of Afghanistan. Nazir, over to you.
Your Excellency Chair Abid Bhai, thank you very much for the kind introduction. Nagesh Bhai, Sachan Saab, and the rest of you, thank you very much for the invitation. I hope I could contribute adding to the discussion, but I'm afraid I might have wasted the resources being here while discussing this very critical and difficult subject on financing the needs. But perhaps if I make it easier for myself, I would fully associate with Dr. Saab Roy on the bigger picture of financing the SDGs and the failure of the Addis Ababa conference. But speaking of the country level agendas representing Afghanistan, I guess we all are having similar challenges, but ours is a little too unique in a sense that we are also at the same time, while we are trying to reconnect with the global community, making efforts on our part to address development challenges, but at the same time, our challenges are being exacerbated by this very fact that we are managing a war. We are fighting terrorism, and at the same time trying to build institutions from the scratch and build capacity. 17 years down the road, we are very thankful to the international community, India and the region and rest of our partners, for their very generous support extended to us, and that still is being continued. While our Ministry of Economy, being the secretariat for the SDGs, bringing us the resource, the projectized list of agendas under the SDGs, we are struck with this idea, with this fact that the international community is already financing 95% of my development budget. My local revenue and resources cannot even meet my recurrent budget. At the backdrop of this, I'm afraid that there's not much I can push the international community or the global north. But again, this our buy-in, our commitment as a country in a fragile situation to the international agendas like SDGs and this local ownership, I guess, is a source of incentive for the international community to continue their support, as it has been the case for the last 17 years. Moving on, we have passed, as my colleague from the Ministry of Economy discussed yesterday, we have passed 3 phases of engaging with the SDGs, from the preparation to the nationalization, and now we are at the midst of alignment and localization. But I guess this very core issue of financing still is not being discussed. As a matter of fact, 3 years now after our engagement with the SDGs agenda, during my recent budget hearing, I was shocked that except for the Ministry of Economy being the secretariat for the SDGs, none of my line ministries even discussed in vague terms their financing need for the SDGs. I'm afraid that for implementation phase, ownership is at the heart of it. We have passed through the VNR and nationalization and the rest, but when it comes to the implementation, you must absolutely own the agendas before you can even imagine financing. That is not the case, unfortunately. None of the budgetary units within the bureaucracy even mentioned the SDGs in this recent budget hearing, which still is going on for the next year's budget. As I said, I might not be at the position to be adding anything innovative to the recommendations on how we can perhaps address this financing challenge. But a few things on my part with respect to the recommendation, and I end with that. To the government, perhaps a better job on the alignment could perhaps spare some resources and stop the duplication. A better job on the alignment of the projects and priorities is helpful. And most of these national priority programs or the national development strategies in most of our countries are somewhat somehow or the other perhaps are in line with the SDGs agenda. The second is to the government to improve its engagement with the international community in terms of the discussion over the development cooperation. As I said, aid being already the development aid financing 95% of my development budget. So this is critical to continue and sustain this engagement of us being a spoiled child of the international community should be perhaps extended for a couple of more years until we try to move towards self-reliance. The third recommendation to the government perhaps is to strengthen its fiscal strategy and reform. On the fiscal side, something perhaps neglected at times, there's a lot of room for reforms. And that is something to be done at the top of the enlarging the tax base and the rest. Efficiency in terms of governance operations is something that we tried to do, and that was helpful for sparing some resources. Seeking concessional loans is, of course, a little complicated, but again, on the private sector, as a third component of my recommendation, I believe that one of the reasons perhaps MDGs failed was because of lack of private sector's involvement. For the private sector, we luckily are learning from the region and from our southern partners on PPPs. We do have a PPP program going on, a number of projects already being under implementation in the health, education, and infrastructure sector. But again, there's more room for public-private partnership in our context, provided the degree of readiness differ between the countries, amongst the countries. A number of bankable projects could be attractive to the private sector. But on the very final solution of the South-South cooperation, I have already challenged a number of aspects with respect to the South-South cooperation and this very same premises last year when we discussed South-South and Triangle cooperation. But a few could perhaps be replicated and could be helpful. And for that, we always looked up to India with respect to the technology and capacity and knowledge and at the same time also agriculture was always proved to be helpful. I thank you with this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Actually, I also gave you the time for Mrs. Kiran Gupta. So, but thanks for reminding us that countries who are in unequal situation, in order to bring equality, we have to have some sort of unequal treatment for those countries. And Afghanistan, of course, is one peculiar case. So the second last discussant for today is Mr. James Matthew, Deputy Director General, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, India.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to all. I actually represent Ministry of Environment and Forest today, but actually I was still recently, till last month, I